I'm Christian Patouraux. I'm the founder and CEO of Kacific Broadband Satellites, and we've just launched our first satellite two months ago. The main challenge was actually to communicate with the satellite from Earth with low-cost systems that could be distributed to every household like we have today. It actually needed a complete transformation of the commercial and industrial ecosystem to allow those small, what we call terminals, so those small dishes, to start actually not only receiving signal, but start sending signal at 36,000 kilometers from Earth. So we have that today, and I think really the first time I really heard of broadband or internet being operated from every household was probably around the end 1990s, when the internet was really picking up and the satellite industry was really starting to realize that they had a role to play into that. It was a long journey for the satellite industry. I think in the early 2000s, the industry was only at the very early stage. Some satellites were launched, but they couldn't really compete with ADSL just yet. I would say that's really around 2010, 2012 that the first big satellites were launched to start providing internet, mainly in the developed world, in the US, in Europe. So how to get to the scale that we have with Kacific? Kacific 1 is the second largest commercial satellite ever built, and it was launched in orbit mid-December. If you launch a small satellite, you won't reach the economies of scale that are required by space. So how do you get there? Eventually, it's with money. You have to raise a tremendous amount of money. We raised close to $250 million. We're actually not quite there yet because we would like to launch more satellites and have more impact around the world. One segment, for instance, is the broadcast, and broadcast is a difficult market today because it's under a lot of pressure from terrestrial fiber, IPTV. Now, we are still in the early days of broadband via satellite. It's been about, I would say, close to 10 years that the first real broadband satellite, sensible broadband satellite was launched. We are getting there. I think there's not enough focus on the broadband, on delivering the service, delivering the value. I think it's going a little bit in every direction with the LEO constellation today. A lot of focus is given to the technology rather than the value. I think there's still a lot more that we can do. New satellites are now being offered. I think that's the next quantum step is those software-defined satellites. So you launch, if you want, a bit like a smartphone. You launch it, and it has no coverage. It can be placed anywhere, and you just command its coverage from Earth. So once it's launched, it's going to cover certain regions, and you can shift that over time. And that, I think, will really usher our industry into its golden age. On the supply side, we are working with ST Engineering in Singapore. They own different companies that provide what we call the hub technology, which is the networking technology for space. So we have bought a pretty large system to operate our broadband service from space. But on the customer side, we of course have many customers in the region. We have large companies in Indonesia, in the Philippines, as well as in different parts of the Pacific, in Papua New Guinea. So now our service will become a lot more valuable because of the bandwidth that Kacific One will be able to deliver. We have covered a number of hospitals, a number of schools. In hospitals, we have connected, for instance, in East Timor, in Timor-Leste, we have connected 75 clinics. In islands of the Pacific, such as Vanuatu, we have connected remote dispensaries. The industry that stands to benefit the most from the affordable internet is healthcare, because it addresses a fundamental need of population. And once you connect a remote dispensary, for instance, it will attract nurses that otherwise wouldn't want to live there, and also it will allow them to connect doctors in case of critical illness. Or to call medevac. The country that will be able to scale up that kind of service the fastest and that will benefit also from such a service would be Indonesia within our coverage because of its the sheer population, that's the critical mass of population that is not currently properly connected. There's about 10% of the Indonesian population that is either not connected or really not well connected at all. And it's not the whole country, but our regions in Indonesia, especially in the east or in some parts of Sumatra, so West Papua, Moluccas, that are really not well connected, and where you have, I think, literally thousands of small clinics and dispensaries that need e-health, that would need to get a doctor online. And you're not talking about a difficult system. They can just connect with Skype or with WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger and just ask for advice on how to address a patient in critical in a critical situation. I would say that it's around $1 per gigabyte. I think that's the golden price target. Today, Kacific operates around between $1.50 and $2. We'd love to take it down to around $1. At this stage, it's still difficult. But even with $2, I think we can scale to the right level where our satellite, we believe, is going to fill up very, very quickly. Satellite remains confined and has been pushed more and more to the outer world, the rural world, the remote world, but it has a right to win in these regions. It will be very difficult for terrestrial means to push satellite even further out. It would cost 10 times, 20 times more to set up fiber to the home of remote villages. And as long as satellite occupies its rightful place in the whole mix, it will stay there. And that's why I think you were asking earlier about the golden age of satellite. I think this golden age should arrive as soon as possible for the satellite industry to keep that mix. Otherwise, the pressure from the villagers, from the communities, from the hospital, the schools, the police station to get internet will be so high that whatever the costs, even if it's uneconomical, they will eventually get terrestrial internet if the satellite doesn't occupy its space. So that's where I think that the industry should come together, the space industry should come together and start really occupying that segment that it's rightfully its, basically.